Welcome everyone to ET Hospitality World's roundtable on operating under operating under Omicron in the industry. Now, Omicron has hit us, but it hasn't had the effect that we felt it would have. Thank goodness for that. But it's still early days. I have a very eminent group of panelists, starting with Ranju Alex, who is the Market Vice President, West India for Marriott International, followed by Zubin Songadwala, who's the Area Manager South, ITC Hotels, and General Manager of ITC Grand Chola. Then I have Kanika Hasrat, who's the Area Director, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, and General Manager at Taj Lakefront Bhopal IHCL. Finally, we have Maverick Mukherjee, who's the General Manager Delegate for Karnataka State and General Manager for IBIS and Novotel Bangalore Tech Park. And you can make out by the how long that their designations are that they've been in the industry for many years. And welcome everyone to the panel, and let's start with our first question. Thank you very much first for taking time out. I know Omicron has been a boogie, but it's also a boogie because of what media has been talking about, and obviously everyone sees what's happening in the West. And last time also things happened in Europe and then came to us. But before I start asking you the question, from what I am seeing, and you will of course agree or disagree with this, but over the last two post-lockdown periods, I think Indian hospitality has been able to find a survival formula, and that is to look inwards. And I think that's worked really well for us. So the first question, and I'm starting with Ranju. What has been the reaction to the market on the news of Omicron? Because Omicron is still growing and still very small. But what are you seeing in the West?
So, thank you, Bikram, for giving me an opportunity to be here, first of all. I think everybody is very cautious, very pensive, and optimistic all at the same time, if that is possible. Primarily because I think all the newspapers, media reports, all the doctors say that it's another 6 weeks before we actually get to know whether it's a serious wave or not. And as of now, I think all authorities are kind of tracking it very stringently. But I think the predominant news which says that Omicron is not as is actually a mild form is very heartening to know. As long as the health does not get affected very poorly, it is good news, and especially because most of our nation now is vaccinated either by a single dose or double dose, something that we all are very proud about. So yes, we did see a slowdown of pace in the initial days of this news breaking out, but I think things have stabilized again, and like you rightly said, we have just about discovered our resilience as a business, as an industry, and as a country. So that gives us a lot of positive vibes. It's a wait and watch game right now. We have to watch this very closely. But if reports are to be believed, then I think we should be all right. We should see this through.
What are you seeing in the West? Especially Bombay is a big market. Goa is a huge market for you. How has the market been reacting? And of course, like we were discussing before we came online, weddings are a huge segment and they're doing really well. So, what are you seeing in that part, that segment in the West?
So we've not really seen too many cancellations as far as weddings are concerned. We have seen a couple of cancellations of the corporate groups which had just about started trickling in, and those queries are again back for Q1 of next year. So I'm hoping that we have not lost it. It'll come back. There was a dent in the pace for about a week, but it stabilized again. Goa has been a delight through the entire post-pandemic era. It hasn't really slowed down too much. In Bombay, we are lucky to have very high occupancies now. The rate continues to be a challenge. Pune is one city which will take time and has taken time compared to the other metros to bounce back, primarily because of the nature of business that Pune has. One can see a growth in manufacturing, one can see a growth in the automobile industry, but I think IT is still very, very cautious about working from offices. You can see a trickle, but it is nowhere close to what it used to be, and that was the predominant business in that market. So West, in pockets, is very, very different. Goa behaves very, very differently to Bombay, and Bombay behaves very, very differently to Pune. The other delight, other than Goa, also has been the tier two cities in the West, like Nagpur and Nasik, which have done very well throughout the post pandemic era. So yes, there have been some wins and not so great wins in the others.
Okay. Kanika, I'm going to move now to center. From west, I'm traveling east. You have a large swath of territory under you. And you've
Right.
been also, I mean, I'm going to cheat a bit because you've also been present in a very large corporate market, which I remember you telling me Gurgaon was almost like a leisure market during the lockdown and obviously between the two
Absolutely.
lockdowns. So, what are you seeing in your area? What is it like as far as customers are going, as far as guests are going, and of course, what is the Omicron news?
So I think Ranju said it very well. As an industry, I believe we are being cautiously optimistic. The first 1 week of December did shake all of us, and we saw a decline of pace. We did see cancellations too in a lot of the markets. Like actually cover three large states. And talking about my past experience in NCR, I think all hotels in all these territories did see a decline. When I talk about Uttarakhand has been quite. It's a very leisure market. It has been a very well-traveled market over the last few months. Indians have discovered our own hills and our mountains, and even travel there slowed down. But it was a very small blip. It's back. That market is back to doing its high 70% already. Uttarakhand has a huge opportunity with the government business over there. It's stated for election in the next few months. And there is a huge movement even as we speak, whether it's the Kashi Vishwanath corridor happening. So UP has been very strong on leisure as well as the government business. So if you consider government is corporate, corporate is still moving in that market. Being in the heart of the country, MP is really unexplored. It's a very large state with very small hospitality presence. So I know I'm talking to all hotel majors here, so mark it, but take your time. But it's the beauty of being in this place is that there are very few hotels. So fortunately, business is still very strong. As far as the presence of the new variant goes, we are all very cautiously watching it. The news is there's good news some days, there's bad news some days. We are hearing about the spread being more widespread. We are also hearing about being milder. However, with the focus India has had on vaccination and the focus we have had on sustaining ourselves, I think all of us today are very confident about our own domestic markets. Our customers are all domestic, and that has kept us all going. So I hope that trend continues. And with the international flights getting deferred, I do believe leisure and our own brethren will be the focus or continue being the focus.
Okay. Zubin, I want to ask you about Tamil Nadu and Andhra and Telangana, which are big parts of your market, and what's happening there. You've got a huge hotel in both Chennai as well as Hyderabad. What are you seeing?
So, good afternoon, everybody, first of all. Bikramjit, what we have seen, or what I have seen from the, this is actually, it's there, the data shows it. Um, right from last year, as the unlock started to happen, both Karnataka and Andhra started opening out in the month of June last year, Andhra and Telangana. But what we have noticed is that the way Hyderabad as a market has been able to pick up right from last year itself, uh, Bangalore has taken much longer, and Chennai, by virtue of the fact that, or Tamil Nadu, by virtue of the fact that we could open up only in the month of September, had the least or the last kind of a start. Telangana has seen no turning back. Telangana is one of the first states to have lifted restrictions. They have been the most progressive in terms of being able to give the empowerment back to the people to ensure that they are responsible for their own safety and well-being, which actually gave the hotels a great opportunity. It was very encouraging to see that. Despite the fact that we have a hotel in the high-tech city, which is known for its business kind of clientele and business transient traffic, that hotel was probably had the best recovery in the first 3 months of operation, and it continues to be. So, and we have definitely not seen that happening in Karnataka. Karnataka is a market that has, when I say Karnataka, I'm talking Bangalore specifically, has been a market which has seen a high dependence on international travel, high dependence on IT. And what we have also realized is, and we operate two brands there, the ITC Luxury Collection and the Welcome Hotels. And in all the markets where we have had Welcome Hotels, within the first 6 months itself, we were hitting 80% occupancies because that those markets have been, or those hotels have predominantly been driven by the domestic market, the distribution, the patronage, etc. So, long story short, hotels that have and hotel companies that have had a strong distribution and brand recall in the domestic market have recovered much faster than the other hotels or the international hotel companies, or I would say the hotels that are dependent on international transient traffic. I can assure you one thing: moment international travel is back, it will be a whole different story. That's for sure. And we saw green shoots of international travel returning in the beginning of December, and the whole thing went absolutely flat on its face. Yes, while we are saying that it's not impacted us to that extent, the international travel, whatever little bit was coming in dribs and drabs, or whatever was scheduled to start coming in the first and second week of December, has got put off. So that 6 week window that Ranju was talking about is the wait and watch period, with our fingers crossed, and we hope that there is some movement that happens again on that front.
Okay. Maverick, Zubin has already started speaking about Karnataka now. You also look at the budget end of the market because the Ibis is a
Oh,
very
I'm sorry.
strong brand.
Did you leave out Karnataka from my question by design? I didn't realize that.
Uh-huh.
Maverick, I'm sorry for hijacking that.
It's okay. Maverick, tell me about the segment that you are working in, which is also the segment which has the most amount of excitement among everyone, especially to some extent about the backlog of development and stuff like that as well. But we will get into the development question later, and it's unfair to ask you guys about development. But what's happening in Karnataka that you're seeing, and what's happening in the budget market, because you're seeing a lot of people coming in also, right?
Certainly. Dr. First of all, thanks for having me here today, and it's just fantastic to be here. Look, I echo everyone's sentiments around the panel, and Zubin is not too far off the mark. I think there definitely have been certain challenges in Bangalore as a whole. I mean, when we take all of 2020 and 2021 into perspective. But coming back to the original point of the question, which was about Omicron, when the news first came out, I was worried, and I think it was quite fair to be worried at that point of time. The initial reaction from the market, from what I perceived, was probably a little short of all-out panic. And we did see some cancellations come in for perhaps the first 10 days odd. But also, it's quite interesting for me because when I'm looking at my booking pace over the next 2 or 3 months, and especially when I look at December, most of the hotels in my sphere of responsibility are actually holding anywhere between 35 to 50% better business against 2019. So that to me is very encouraging, because that really tells me that yes, there was some panic at the at the beginning of the month, but people are still traveling. There is still that need to travel. There is a desire to travel, and that makes me very, very happy, and it keeps me encouraged with regards to what's in the future. With regards to the second part of your question, what's happening in the economy segment or mid segment, I think it's coming back, and of course it's. I like the use of the term cautious optimism, because I think all of us are using it everywhere, and there's no other way to put it. We're all cautiously optimistic, but I would like to have a certain degree of, probably a higher degree of optimism, because people are coming back to work in Bangalore, especially through the domestic segment, especially when we look at corporate movement coming back into the cities, whether it's 30% or 50% occupancy in the offices. Definitely seeing some movement happen towards the end of December, and then very strong demand coming up in the first 2 or 3 weeks of January. And a lot of it is corporate groups, which is people relocating back into Bangalore city. But when I look at Mysore, I've never had stronger performance than what we have witnessed in the last 6 months. And I go back to the last 4 years. So I think early green shoots, but I would like to think that we have good times ahead as an industry.
Okay, I wanted to ask one more question, taking a note out of what Maverick was saying, and Ranju, I'll start with you. Are you seeing better performance in your smaller hotels which are not in the metro areas?
So, like I said, tier 2 cities are behaving very, very differently, and they were the first ones to bounce back, actually, after the pandemic. If I was to put it that way, the numbers, the segmentation, the ADRs are very, very different compared to metro cities. You can't really compare a tier 2, tier 3 business. But in terms of recovery, they did bounce back much faster than the metro cities. Maybe also because the inventory of the metro city hotels are far more and more of a challenge to fill up than the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And to reiterate what everybody on this panel, Kanika, Zubin, and Maverick said, the domestic market is the market that we are all feeding out of right now, and their presence in tier 2 and tier 3 cities is huge. So that was also one of the reasons why that phenomenon happened. So yes, their results have been very, very encouraging.
Zubin, your group is also expanding its Welcome Hotel brand into a lot of the smaller cities, not only in leisure but also business. Are you seeing there is a lot of MSME work also in your states? Are you seeing a bigger bounce back there?
Huge. First example, Coimbatore. While there was the staycationing, etc., that happened, it was probably the first city where I saw in the southern region activity happening on that MSME front. Visakhapatnam is another area and a city where we saw that activity happening. On the other hand, when we're talking about Welcome Hotels, a couple of months back we opened Welcome Hotel Bhubaneswar. There is a fair amount of traction that's happening there. We opened 3 Welcome Hotels up in the hills in the last 6 months, and next week we open our hotel in Guntur.
Okay.
It's the first 5-star hotel in the city, and so optimism is there. Cautious, yes, we would like to say, but I mean, if you are cautious, you won't be going with the kind of bullishness that we are going with. And these are not hotels that we are opening on other people's accounts. These are not managed properties. These are owned properties. Bhubaneswar, Guntur, a few months from now, Ahmedabad. So there is a lot of bullishness that we are seeing, and I guess at the end of the day, it's who is going to be there and ready to start accepting business the moment things open up, and we definitely don't want to miss that bus.
Okay. So before I go into my next question, I want to just clarify that Accor and Marriott are calendar years, right? So when you're saying Q1, you're meaning Jan to March.
Yes, I did.
While as
Right.
Taj and ITC are financial years, right?
Right.
Great.
Okay, so there's no confusion. Okay, so
We'll
let me
keep
ask.
that in mind. We'll keep that in mind,
No, no,
Bikram,
no, no.
next time.
You don't have to keep that in mind. The people listening to us have to keep that in mind. So
Sure.
the next question I want to ask you again, we start with Ranju, and then we go to Zubin, Kanika, and then Maverick. Is the new normal? We are talking about the new normal, and obviously, let me also add that we are very cautious this time around, especially because after the first bounce back, after the first lockdown, everyone thought, "Wow, happy days are back," and then we got slammed again in March. So obviously, and I'm not blaming anyone for doing that, but everyone is feeling this sense of excitement and the butterflies in everyone's stomach, saying, "Wow, we're seeing things happening." But at the same time, the industry is no longer what it was in the end of 2019, when people were expecting 2020 to be the best year after a long time, because we've been going through an ebb. Now, what do you think with the new normal? How do you think next year's? I know this is an unfair question, but what is next year going to perform like in your view? First, Ranju.
So, Bikram, I think the new normal, those words itself are very, very dynamic now. That new normal changes every day, every minute, every week, and we've seen that in the recent past. I mean, with Omicron and the news about it, actually made us, just when we were starting to feel very brave, has made us feel that we are still very, very vulnerable. I mean, the world at large, the industry at large, is still very, very vulnerable. So, I think the new normal is a word that is used in such a large context now, and it is so very dynamic. I think the main focus should be for us not to lose the lessons that we learned from the last 2 years, and we've learned many as an industry, as individuals, as professionals. We've learned. We pick up the best of that, and then we move forward. How do you see 2022 coming up? It'll definitely be better than 20 and 21 and 22. 22 will be better than 20 and 21. Will it come to the levels of 19? I would take the risk of saying no. I think we would be there in the first half of 23, most likely, if everything goes on well. Because you have to understand that a lot of businesses have still not opened up. The rates in every single market, especially in the metro cities, which houses the big box hotels, are highly challenged even today. So will 22 mirror 19? I don't think so. But yes, towards the end of 22 and early 23, we will definitely see signs, not signs, or probably full recovery as far as 19 is concerned. So it's going to be a good year. How good? That barometer, unfortunately, none of us have today, and it all depends on the virus. If you really ask
Yes.
me, one outbreak, however mild or however contained it is, it does create panic, no matter what, individually as well as an industry. So I use this term all the time: wait and watch. Unfortunately, that's the term I'll use again. Let's wait and watch.
Zubin, over to you. New normal.
So here's the thing. When you talk new normal, now there are so many parameters which we need to be looking at. One is the new normal on a hotel operations. How do hotels operate? How do hotels sell? How do hotels start filling up? The second is new normal on how do our customers and buying behavior, how has it changed, and what are expectations. Another is our workforce in the new normal is a very different animal. Our service providers in the new normal are very different. Many of them who were around pre-pandemic don't exist anymore. So there is a huge shift. When you're talking about, and we'll come back to a few of those points, which I believe are ones which are the biggest areas of concern. When we talk about returning back to pre-pandemic levels, that was part of the question as well. Am I right?
Yeah.
So I think hotels, there are many hotels across the country that have crossed pre-pandemic levels. and that's what was talked about a little while back, our resort properties. In terms of volumes, many of our business hotels have hit pre-pandemic levels.
Mm.
Rates have not yet got there. The way that we sold earlier and way that things were in the pre-pandemic level in terms of business, picking up business, layering business, the criticality of relationships with the booker, etc. Everything now seems to have just got washed away, and everything has now become transactional through that one entity called the OTA. At least in the last few months, we've seen that happen. How long it continues is a question mark. But at the end of the day, whatever signs we are seeing, even after recoveries, OTAs don't seem to be going anywhere in a hurry.
Mm.
They have had and they continue to have deep pockets, continue to do very aggressive marketing, and we continue to see great benefit by working with them. On the other hand, now we're talking about the customer. Expectations of the customer have gone up multifold. And when I say expectation, they say, first of all, the customers who we have seen coming into our hotels over the last few months, last 18 months or so, probably they are first time users of five-star hotels. Their expectations, it was been aspirational. Suddenly they can afford the hotels. But at the same time, they are no less demanding, or they're probably more demanding than our guests pre-pandemic. Suddenly everybody has become so aware and so conscious and so active on social media. I mean, you may have guys on Twitter who have 1.5 followers who will still believe that they should go out there and give and share their opinions. There are tools like TripAdvisor, like various other social media sites, which people have been leveraging to beat an industry and kick that industry that is already down on the ground. So that is the other thing in the new normal that we have seen, which has really gone absolutely ballistic. Uh, the way that hotels now start operating in terms of their room to manpower ratio, in terms of their cost structures, let me tell you, the biggest boon, if there is any at all, that has come out of Corona is the fact that hotels have had an opportunity to hit the reset button in reimagining, reworking their cost structures. A lot have done it. Many have also, uh, unfortunately, I must say, I must admit, many may have probably gone overboard and compromised the brand, compromised the services, etc. But many people have used it to their benefit as well. So these are things that in the new normal have totally changed the dimension of hospitality and hoteliering. I still believe it's a very loosely used term and phrase, but it is something that you cannot ignore. The book of hospitality or the journals of hospitality have all been rewritten over the last 18 months. And what we will be teaching, hopefully, we will be teaching our new workforce that comes in how to prepare themselves for this new way of operating in this industry.
Okay. Kanika?
Yes. So new, I think that word new is new every day. It is dynamic. It has we have unlearned a lot. All the past lessons of hospitality have, like Zubin rightfully said, got rewritten. But also we have. When I say we've learned, we started at the time when we said every touch and every surface sanitization, to a time when we say mask is the only way to safeguard yourself. It's airborne, and still now we're still discovering what it is and how it spreads. So yes, all of us went back and read and tried to safeguard our teams, our guests, take care of the little business we had at that time, and we've been fortunate in many places. Business has come back in a lot of towns and a lot of cities to um, numbers which were unheard of earlier. So that customer who had choices is suddenly our customer, and we are seeing numbers which challenge us. When you say the next year, how's it going to be? I If the markets open up, certain cities will go downwards. Because our leisure destination have had exceptional years, or I would say at least one last 1 year. Also, the trends which we are seeing as far as our guests go, trends which we are seeing as far as our associates go. I truly believe the bigger challenge in front of hospitality is going to be that do people really want to be with us in the future? And how we unlearn a little bit of how we have worked in the past. We've all unlearned a lot. We learn to be meaner, smarter, leaner. I won't say mean with
Yes, yes.
with the
I heard,
because
I heard meaner. So,
yeah, that's why I read said it.
yeah.
One, but the tougher one is going to be obviously for us the fact that how do we keep and retain and grow more talent in the future? Because while we will have technology coming in and taking over a lot of jobs, we are still a high touch, high emotion industry. And that will be where all of us as leaders, I would say, would get challenged. So that's going to be the future or the new challenge in front of us. Business, like I said, in some cities will be tougher in the coming year as markets open up, because people would start looking at other options and maybe the skies open up again. And we have all been curbed to our own cities, or a little bit of driving has been the big journey in the past. But now I think the new opportunities also for us would be how do we as a nation start tempting the customers from worldwide back to us, because we are more vaccinated, we have got technology supporting us, or what we have managed as a nation has been far better than so many others. So that's going to be the bigger one for us. How do we show that we are a safer nation to travel to? And hopefully the IT industries and the cities which are so highly dependent on IT will realize that work from home is great for some time, but it's not great for teamwork. It's not great for building camaraderie, for delivering results as in unison. So I know a lot of finance and IT companies have reported exceptional scorecards this year. But would that be the way forward? Because that is what will all affect all of us. That is why a new normal will depend on so many external forces. And yes, it will be a time to see how things really span out in the next 2-3 months. Every winter we feel exuberant and say business is coming back. Feb 2020 was also that time. Last year 21 Feb was also that time we thought we were doing well, and then we were looking at a different picture in March. So really, fingers, toes crossed. However, still being optimistic. And 2022 for a lot of cities should be much better than 2021, but for a lot of cities will still be a downward trend.
I don't think hoteliers being positive and optimistic is a issue. I mean, if you
Never.
weren't, you wouldn't survive.
Absolutely.
So, Maverick, what's the new normal like in your part of the world, in your part of the business?
Vikramjit, the new normal for me is, and I would like to be a little future focused. For me, piggybacking a little bit on what Ranju and Kanika said, it's about not forgetting some of the lessons we have learned in the past, especially with regards to, and I want to specifically talk about a couple of things. One is the hygiene and sanitation aspect of hotels, both from a customer product and service delivery perspective, as well as a customer's perception of that hygiene and sanitation being delivered to them, and what they feel about it. I think it's about being very emotionally connected with your customers at this stage, being more open to feedback, and listening to what is working, what is not working, especially in terms of perception management. And also being able to measure reality on the ground through consistent audits all across the board. I can tell you about myself, and we were briefly chatting in the morning, and we pretty much go through about 5 audits a week at every different site or every hotel, and it's about monitoring, learning what's happening, and so on and so forth. Also, I do believe it's very important not to forget some of the lessons we have learned in terms of the rapid digitalization we have had at Workspace, as well as in terms of service delivery to our guests. Do we really need, for example, paper menus anymore? Look at the way marketing has changed over the last couple of months. Look at the innovative things that hotels have done. Some have worked, some have obviously not worked, but there are some good lessons to learn from and then build up over the next couple of months. The other aspect I want to talk about is about putting the focus back into people as business returns. And hopefully, as you said, we're all optimistic. I still think, people are our best asset. And I mean our workforce, the people who really make hotels run on the ground. And I think it's time to put a lot of focus back into retraining all through the next couple of months at every step along the way, and also increase our emotional connect with the people on the ground in an effort to be able to retain and be able to build on our brand loyalties. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Before I go on to the next question, in connection again with Maverick is saying, do you guys feel that the amount of talent that was there for hospitality, has it gone down? Have people decided not to go with hospitality? Or what I'm seeing among the new people, they want to become independent, or they're getting great opportunities to go abroad and work? Same job they were doing here, they'll go and do abroad. Is that a challenge that you see coming and affecting hospitality, maybe not this year or next year, but going ahead in the next 4-5 years? Ranju?
So, Bikram, if I may, it's a strange phenomenon. In 2019, there was a dearth of talent. 2021, now when we look around, there's still a dearth of talent. And people had opportunities then, people have opportunities now. The ones who had to stick on have stuck on. Yes, there's been a bleed in between where the say the Amazons of the world did pick up a lot of people from the hospitality industry. One, because there were no jobs on this side, and then there was a dearth. There was a dearth of jobs on one side, and there was a surplus of jobs on the other side. So I think it was just a organic shift that happened. But I feel that. It is a very temporary it's a very temporary phenomenon. Public memory is short. Yes, the only thing that's got proven is that the hospitality industry is very, very vulnerable. Any world event that happens, the hospitality industry is the first to take a break or to get affected by that, and that is something that plays on our minds as well. When we were younger, and Kanika and I have shared younger days, so I can look up to her. When we were younger, also 26/11 happened, and then the recession happened, and a lot of bleed happened. But then the ones who had to stick on, like us, we did stick on. I think all four of us have stuck on to those, despite those days. I think the new normal.
What?
Sorry.
Maybe because nobody else offered us a job.
And I think the only new normal, Bikram, if I may add to what everybody said, is an open mind. No textbook, no management book ever taught us how to come out of a pandemic recovery. Nobody told us how to run hotels with single-digit occupancies. No one told us how to shut hotels. No one told us how to open hotels. We did not find it. We did not study it. But I think it's been a journey of self-exploration. All of us, have leaders, have tried to find our own way, our own path. So the only thing that helps us, and the new normal, if I may say, is an open mind. Keep tweaking the strategies, keep tweaking the path as and when we go forward. You actually cannot really rest in one place and say this is the new normal now, because you never know when the scenario behind you changes. But yeah, talent continues to be an issue. It always was. Actually, good talent in the industry has always been a challenge, always.
Kanika, you've got a lot of hotels in smaller areas where anyhow it will be a challenge getting. I don't want to sound classist or anything. To get good talent to go there, I mean, people don't want to, work in a small town. So, is that something that you've been facing even now? Because hotels are very busy in leisure destinations.
So, Bikramji, let me just put it like that, actually, small towns have a great opportunity. as far as finding talent, because you actually have people, when you're looking for talent, are we really looking for education, or are we looking for attitude? So what I've seen is that the attitude of people on the service behavior is far stronger in our smaller towns. So people look up to hotels. They really want to work there. It is in our larger cities and metros where we struggle more. Yes, it's about all of us thinking differently and trying to garner and harness the talent which may be in places where they don't have the opportunities. I think there is opportunity. It is about finding it, and it's about grooming them to our standards. Also, one of the bigger ones for a smaller city is that the bright lights of the larger metros always beckons. So if there's attrition, it will happen from the smaller cities to the larger ones. But there is definite talent available. It's about finding the right person. And one of the learnings, I've just recently opened a hotel in the middle of the pandemic. And that too in a city which is not considered an A-grade city, etc., like a Bhopal. But the fact is that people want to work with brands, firstly. Secondly, there are still people passionate about the industry. There were people looking out for that ray of hope of saying that there is opportunity. Yes, it may be in a smaller town, and lots of people have moved from the larger metros to a small Bhopal today to rebuild their career. So that's been a positive. However, how long that stays depends on all of us. It's about us engaging more with people. It is about building that passion for the industry, which all of us have. It is about encouraging them to grow and keep doing things differently. And of course, finding that person who never thought of hospitality as a future, but helping them join this beautiful industry.
So, in line with what Kanika is saying, Zubin, do you think it's and you're going to become a school principal also soon? So, I'm saying, do you think it's time? Do we need more vocational? Do we need to change the way that we get the talent into the industry? Because it's always been you have to do a degree or a diploma, 3 years, then you come in. But in Europe, people join at 15 and they do vocational. Is that a better way forward? Because as Kanika said, it's not about education, it's all about the way you are. Do you agree with her? Do you think that's the way forward?
See, that is an age-old adage for recruitment, right? You first look at the attitude. The skills and knowledge we will build. There have been a whole lot of these memes and stories and video clips that have been going around, and every 26th day when it comes up again as to what was the success factor for Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai, in terms of their manpower and their loyalty that the manpower there showed. It all came down to, it didn't come to necessarily to the way they were educated and where they were educated. It is the loyalty they showed for the brand, for the company that they have grown up with, for the company that they have owe their lives to, quote unquote, and literally they demonstrated it that way. I think it's all about how well a brand is able to attract talent, is what it's all coming down to. The intake in hotel management institutes, I am aware, is down to up to 70% in many institutes across the country. Up to. Nobody till now has reached, quote unquote, pre-pandemic levels of intake of students. Okay, there are seats going begging across the country in this education. So, 3 years from now, what's going to happen when they start graduating, these people, and hopefully the business is back at and booming, is going to be anybody's guess. So, yes, what you said is right. What we have also embarked on a while ago, and what you touched upon a while ago, where we have tied up with CII and L'École Hôtelière to actually groom a whole new generation of young hospitality professionals with a vocational training program, where they will come and work and study on the job at ITC hotels across the country and get prepared for the industry going forward.
Maverick, does Accor have? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Maverick, does Accor have any similar plans? Because you've worked in New Zealand and Australia where intake is slightly different. It's not so graduate oriented, and do you feel that system will work in this country?
I would like to think it will, but I don't know at what stage it will. Personally, with what's happening, yes, I am a little worried. In fact, I'm quite worried because I think what we are witnessing at the moment is a certain amount of evolution in the traditional workforce that has always been there for hotels. I would like to think that in future, as recruiters, we perhaps have a little more innovative approach to the way we manage our, to start with, our human capital forecasting. We've all learned lessons in efficiency over the last couple of months. Can we carry it forward? Is it sustainable? And so on and so forth. I think we also need to be a little different with regards to, but there are opportunities there. For example, from a workforce perspective, is return to work mothers an option? Is building in more diversity with regards to the age of the working population in hotels an option? There are, for example, there are many retirees who can potentially come back to the workforce. So I think it's about keeping a very open mind, because I definitely think in the short to mid-term, we will be massively challenged. And therefore, a few minutes earlier, I alluded specifically to the fact that I think moving forward, it's going to be a very equitable relationship in what an employer offers and what an employee offers. We all know what an employee offers to us, but I think there's going to be a lot of focus on what the employer offers back to the employee in terms of opportunities for development, opportunities for skilling themselves, dignity at the workspace, respect at the workspace, and above everything else, a sense of well-being at the workspace. And that's really what I meant earlier when I spoke about an emotional connect with the workforce that you have.
And diversity is a subject with both Ranju and Kanika have spoken with me extensively on. And it's rare to have a panel on hospitality which is 50% female in this country. Let's just put it that way. So I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the fact that we have 2 women and 2 men on the panel. Okay, let's get back to the Omicron and look away from your group. Tell me what's happening in your region. What has been happening in the last month, a couple of months, and going forward, what are you seeing? Ranju, starting with you.
Okay, so I think my region west, by virtue of a lot of businesses being based in and around Bombay, and Goa being the center of of leisure, I think it's trending extremely well, and we are very positive at the way things will go. Pune again, though is a little challenged with occupancy right now. It's doing extremely well in F&B, which has always been a forte for Pune. We have 8 hotels there, and all of them are doing extremely well. Pune is also being used a lot in the sporting and entertainment in the, by the sporting and the entertainment industry. So the occupancies are slowly looking up. But yes, very positive vibes from the west. As of now, in the next 2 months are looking good, especially with socials and F&B, and the trickling of corporate groups now, which is a recent phenomenon for the last 3-4 months. So all in all, I think very positive vibes, Bikram, from the west.
Okay, Kanika.
I would talk. Central is doing well. High occupancies, good rates. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, very few hotel companies over here. A lot of safari lodges and a lot of nature travel. So they have all done very well. What worked very well also with the safaris here is that while the safari, the parks themselves were closed, the hotel stayed open, because more than anything else, people were looking for that back to nature kind of place, and that's worked very positively for most of these places. Again, talking UP, Uttarakhand, very positive, I would say, headwinds over there. So the future looks good. Optimistic as far as the business travel goes also. These are all states where a lot of small establishments and corporates are based. a lot of industry partners setting up bases again in places like Agra. So I think the future is good. However, yes, we will keep watching out for this new variant. And we have all said it. Optimistic, cautiously so. That only means that we need to continue to watch our costs while continuing to drive our top lines.
Zubin, leave Karnataka out. The other other three states.
So, Chennai, Mahabalipuram have had a great run. Mahabalipuram, by virtue of it being a great holiday destination by the beach, captive audience and captive market out of Chennai, many other parts of Tamil Nadu as well as Bangalore. So we've been doing good there. Chennai has had great volumes, fabulous volumes that this market has seen in the last few months, largely driven by repatriation groups, doctors. The Tamil Nadu government had a very progressive approach towards healthcare here and had gotten doctors from various parts of the state and housed them in hotels here in bio bubbles as it were. So that was a good push that hotels and hospitality got at terrible rates, but at least it kept the home fires burning. Sports vertical, particularly cricket, did extremely well. There were back-to-back tournaments and activities that happened here in Chennai, including the truncated IPL. Before that, there was Vijay Hazare. Before that, there was Ranji Trophy. So various cricket tournaments and many hotel companies benefited with that. We suddenly started learning how to do things in bubbles, and we learned this new term bio bubble, and hotels started operating in that. So it's been a great story on the volume front. Now the yields are slowly picking up there in Tamil Nadu as well. Coimbatore from day one has been a great story, and we've seen it had its share of staycationers, etc. But we've seen MSMEs and business travel and the domestic business returning there, so that's been a great story as well. Andhra, we had Vishakhapatnam, which continues to do well. Again, on the MSME front, the PSU front, a lot of PSU undertakings that have operations there and some good movement. And Guntur is when we open 25th of December, and we are expecting to have a great Christmas New Year season, and then coming in to the last quarter of our financial year, Jan, Feb, March, we are expecting we've got some good conferences and nice bookings already on the books. Telangana, like I said, the first to take off, and it continues to do exceedingly well as a market. Hyderabad, across the board now, Hyderabad has reached ARRs of something like 7,500 rupees, and while our hotels continue at about 8,000 plus. So that has been an excellent story there as well. So I think the markets here in the south have reacted well. Again, a lot of it has been driven by our domestic travel, and that's the case in all micro markets as well. And I don't see any reason why in the next financial year we should be anything less than pre-pandemic levels as far as occupancy and yields are concerned.
It's a optimistic, cautiously optimistic view, or more optimistic.
December, we are at first 10 days of December. We are at par with December of 2019.
Wow.
Collectively.
Maverick, Karnataka is a slightly different story. Maverick has disappeared before he could say anything. Okay, there he's back.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
I think it's very location dependent. I mean, I can tell you about Bangalore and Mysore specifically. I think Mysore, barring the lockdown and the second wave, has really performed exceptionally well for us this year. And very obviously it is because it is a leisure. It is completely a leisure-driven market. Bangalore, on the other hand, I feel if I reflect back on the past 12 months, it's a market which is heavily driven and dare I say use the word I use the word dependent on the IT and ITES segment, and I feel Bangalore has certainly perhaps been one of the worst impacted markets in the country in the last 12 months. However, we are seeing, as I said, green shoots as we move ahead. December has performed exceptionally well, and it is my hope that over the next 6 months, Bangalore starts recovering on the rate front as well. By and large, I think our occupancies are back, whether it's from the domestic segment or corporates returning back now into Bangalore. And I think the challenge for us really as we move ahead is to be able to manage our yields better and be able to drive better returns to all our stakeholders.
Okay. Now I'm going to do a last round of questions for all four of you, starting with you, Ranju. What do you think are the challenges that you are still facing now?
I think the uncertainty is a huge challenge. It's like a sword hanging on our head every day. I mean, unknowingly or knowingly, you're scanning the papers every day just to see news on this, on flight trends, on restrictions. I mean, even today, we don't know what is going to come between us and the New Year celebrations. And whilst all hotels are planning stuff, you never know what restrictions. For example, Maharashtra got a Section 144 restriction yesterday out of the blue, and you don't expect that, because it does in certain ways put a break on whatever your plans are. So I think the biggest challenge, if I may say so, is the uncertainty of the path that this will take. The biggest challenge is how to regain our position as an industry back in the minds of people. Everybody knows what we have been through, but it'll take a lot of grit, a lot of courage and efforts from all of us to get back to where we were once upon a time. But Bikram, whatever said and done, like I said, this industry, hoteliers in general, are very, very resilient people. This country is very, very resilient. So, given the kind of people we are, the kind of people we deal with, the kind of people we work with, I think we are looking at happier times, if I may dare say so. Yeah, we're looking at happier times.
Yes, and I agree. I think the Indian businessman is the most flexible and resilient person that I have ever met. You can make out
Absolutely.
by people
सवाल
in
है
the
भाई,
market.
पापी पेट का सवाल है. I mean,
Kanika, what are the challenges that you, before I come to you, Zubin? Kanika, what are the challenges that you're going to
I
be
would
facing?
say managing the business, keeping it above waters in the next few months as the uncertainty continues, would be the bigger one. We have all come through a tough year and a half, but now it's about consolidating that position we have gained and continuing strong over the next, I would say, next 6 months is the time for us to watch out for as more of the world gets vaccinated. And hopefully, we all learn to either live with it or help it perish. But staying above water, staying strong, driving the business, yielding better, taking care of our people, all of them come hand in hand.
Yes, Zubin, you were saying something about Papi Pet ka sawal.
you're saying the Indian businessman.
What are the challenges that you're going to be
He
facing
will
in the
travel.
next?
He will keep coming, but we have to keep them coming back. That's what's most important. Challenges, the very hackneyed question, very hackneyed answers we keep giving over and over again. And what has been said by Ranju and Kanika, I don't think I can articulate better. It's all, the biggest challenge is how is it that how have we learned to be able to do course corrections at short notice? How are you able to have a business model which can absorb and have shock absorbers in place for any eventuality? How flexible are you on your cost structures, and how nimble are you on your cost structures to be able to uh, absorb any impact that you will get uh, when you do not make the kind of revenues you'd anticipated? How do you anticipate and how do you forecast the right volume and business levels and be able to gear up for that with all your back ending in place, including your manpower support, etc. These are things that we are going to have to be able to grapple with as we go along if we have to survive. So
Maverick,
it's going to continue in the same manner.
Maverick, anything to add to that?
I think my peers have explained things quite well. I think for me personally, I think the greatest challenge for the future is not being able to forecast business accurately. Things are so dynamic right now. Business pace is so short-lived. I mean, it has never ever been so short or as short as what we see today. And sometimes it's like taking a shot in the dark when we are talking about forecasting. It's literally having a crystal ball in front of you and just getting a number up there, and that becomes a little difficult, especially when you're trying to manage your cost lines as well. And I think that'll be there for some time to come. We have seen quite a lot of it in the last 12 months, or maybe perhaps 18 months. We've adapted. We've all done as best as we could as an industry. But I think the future is as uncertain as ever. But hopefully, we see good times ahead, and I'm sure we will at some point.
I want to thank all my panelists and hope you have a wonderful Christmas, good New Year, and next year. And next year is as more profitable than this season. And of course, hopefully, everyone, as Maverick said, and all of you say, hopefully we are back soon to forecasting for a full year.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
And a happy Christmas to everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Merry
you to you
Christmas.
too.
Thank you.